Now you're probably wondering why it looks like we've connected a light fitting directly to a smoke alarm, and we'll get back to that later in this video. But perhaps we're thinking we might be trying to disguise the fact that we even have smoke or fire alarms fitted, because let's face it, most of the ones you see in the market today are, perhaps we could describe them as, a little bit ugly. While smoke and heat detectors are a vital safety device for any home that should always be installed and looked after, there's no better way of ruining an interior than sticking an ugly white Tupperware box on the roof. Now, have we got some other options? Well, we think we have, because we've got a fantastic range of heat and smoke alarms from Cavius that are award-winning in terms of the design, but we also think have got some great features in there for installers and homeowners. So this family of detectors from Cavius is available as standalone battery versions with a 10-year battery life, so you'll never need to change that, or hardwired mains versions with battery backup, and again with a 10-year battery life. And the great thing is you can mix and match between the range, so you can combine wired with battery powered sensors, and they'll obviously talk to each other such that one sensor, if it detects fire or heat, will trigger the rest in the building, so you know when it's time to get out. Now, when it comes to setting up that wireless interlinking between them, for some units that can be a challenge. Now, not with this Cavius range. It's so simple, you can even do it on the bench before you get to site. The first step is to remove the tab to activate the batteries in the detectors, and then switch them all into learning mode with this little slide switch. Once we're there, we select one of the units as a master unit, and we're going to put that into learning mode by pressing the test button. Interesting thing about the test button on these detectors is the whole front of the sensor. It's not just that little circle in the middle, and we'll come back to that later on when it comes to that light fitting connection. Once we're in that mode, the master unit is transmitting a signal that is picked up by all of the other devices, and once they start flashing, it indicates that they have paired to the master device, and then can be switched back into normal mode and fitted back to the bases, and that is our wireless commissioning complete. You can link 32 units together in one installation, and once you've finished that installation, you'll certainly want to test to make sure that they're all working and talking to each other, and you will of course need to do that as part of periodic inspections. Now, that could cause a bit of headache with 32 units, literally, if they're all to start sounding at full volume together. Now, thankfully, Cavius have come up with a clever way of testing the whole installation. Just select one unit as the master unit, press and hold that large test button for 10 seconds, and that puts it into test mode, and then you can walk around the property and hear individual units intermittently chirping. Now, the great thing is they don't all chirp simultaneously, so it's very easy to tell that the actual chirp is coming from the unit that you're next to. So that literally doesn't deafen everybody in the building when you're doing that test. The actual wiring of the units is straightforward. There's a base that's fixed to the ceiling first, so you can keep the sensor out of the way while all the other dusty trades are still working on site. And of course, there is a dust cap should you need to protect the units post-installation. The bases themselves have got nice color-coded terminals in there. The actual devices are double insulated, so the protective conductor terminal is only there for convenience if you're forming the installation as part of a lighting circuit. And you'll notice on the smoke alarm there is an L2 connection. That is not needed to link the devices together. That's for that light fitting function that we'll come back to. There's a few different wiring options. You can surface mount the wiring and bring the wire through the side of the device using some mini trunking. And we've just done a little example there, pairing that up with some miniature D-line trunking, again to keep that minimal aesthetic. But in most installations, you're probably going to be wiring from behind the unit. You'll notice there's a slight difference in the terminal configuration between the heat detector and the smoke alarm, and that'll have people reaching for the wiring regulations when you see terminals going up against the ceiling. And if you want to do that, that is wiring regulation 526.5, where the building itself can form part of a junction box if it is tested suitably. So it's not a flammable surface. So if we're fixing to a wooden ceiling, you probably need to add a conduit box behind the fitting. Some more great design features built into this range. There's a little tab you click in on the side of the unit, so once that's in place, you then need a tool to remove the sensor head from the base. So that's great for, say, rented properties where you want to prevent people from tampering with the alarms. There's also something to disguise your house embarrassment. So imagine the situation: you've removed the previous smoke alarm that was one of those ugly devices that we started with, and obviously because the Cavius units are considerably smaller, only 98 millimeters across for the mains detector, you may need to disguise up that part of the ceiling that's not decorated, or there may be some cable damage behind there. So they have got a cover plate that stretches up to 150 millimeters to help you tidy up that situation until you get the decorators back in. And if you are replacing or retrofitting existing sensors in an installation, that's where we think the combination of the mains hardwired version and the standalone battery version really come into their own. Perhaps you have to add additional sensors for additional safety, or perhaps you're adding on an extension and it's tricky to get a wire to that new sensor location. Or, as we're seeing increasingly, people are fitting solar equipment into loft spaces, so that could be inverters or batteries, and you'll certainly want to add a smoke detector in that space linked back to the main house alarm system. Now, I've teased it long enough. What about the option to supply a light fitting from the smoke detector? Now, the test button in the middle isn't just a test button. You can actually drill that out and thread a cable in there, and inside the detector itself is a cable grip and that L2 terminal that can be connected to a switch supply. Now, we think there's a great little design option, particularly in houses where you want that minimal look on the ceiling, and you can have quite a drop to a pendant fitting, because of course the regulations suggest that light fitting should be 300 millimeters away from the sensor. Now, if you want to see how we connected this version up here, we've made this little short video to show you the process that you can watch just here. And of course, I will leave a link in the description or floating around here where you can check out the full range from Cavius.